welcome to the Wilder Show podcast. I'm Scott, that's Lauren.
Hello there.
Hi there. Let's tell all the deets. I say deets now, it's short for details.
You're so cool.
I'm only cool IRL. Podcast at wildershow.com is how you contact us. Find us at wildershow.com. The Wilder Show podcast drops Tuesdays and Fridays, 6 a.m. Central Time, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Like, rate, follow, subscribe, and share. Let me say a word about that. You know, when you do that, it really does help us. You hear people say it. I thought, well, really? How's that help
you? Mean when you share? When you share?
Or really just...
Or the liking and the rating and the
liking and the rating.
Subscribing.
Because what it does is it changes the way... it can be found.
Okay.
If you've ever had something that you say, well, I don't know why that was fed to me. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I've never even heard of it before. We want to be the thing nobody's ever heard of before and then must have twice a week. Or actually this week, 3 times. Details on that coming up.
Oh, yeah.
In a few minutes. Anyway, thanks and welcome. We're glad you're here. Gene Hackman. We have to say something about Gene Hackman. There's obviously other things in the news, but Gene Hackman, what a strange and
tragic
story, and I think details are going to seem even more tragic. I think
probably more than we want to know.
Yeah, I think it is. But let's just reflect on him for a second. What was the first Gene Hackman movie you ever saw? Do you know?
You know, I don't think this was the first one I ever saw, but I kind of remember my parents seeing The French Connection.
Well, The French Connection, he won an Oscar for 2 movies. One was The French Connection.
Okay.
And one was Unforgiven.
Right.
So really, and then of course there are many others for which he was nominated.
Maybe Hoosiers.
Well, Hoosiers, maybe, of course. The ones
maybe that's
let me
my
down
first.
a list of some of these: French Connection, Unforgiven, The Conversation, which
Right.
is a very quirky movie.
Okay.
And then there was the sequel to that was done, I think, 30 years later, which Tony Scott, you know I'm a huge fan
I do.
of the work of Tony Scott. It was Enemy of the State. Not a big fan of Will Smith, but Will Smith was in that movie. Anyway, but so was Gene Hackman.
Okay.
And Gene Hackman played the same character that he played 30 years before in The Conversation.
I didn't remember that.
Is that cool?
Yeah, that's very
cool.
cool.
If you wanted to do a little Gene Hackman fest, you could buy or rent The Conversation and then follow that with Enemy of the State by Tony Scott. And really anything by Tony Scott is just wonderful. But Hoosiers, I think the first thing I saw him in was The Poseidon Adventure.
Oh my goodness, I forgot about that. That's before Hoosiers.
Yeah,
yes.
The Poseidon Adventure. He was in A Bridge Too Far, which may have been the first movie I saw him in, a war movie, A Bridge Too Far. He was in Behind Enemy Lines, which was a great PG movie. It was with... I
don't know.
You know, blonde from Highland Park, has a brother who's also an actor, Wilson.
From Highland Park.
Wilson
Brothers. Owen.
Yeah, Owen Wilson.
Okay.
Owen Wilson. It's sort of a little-known movie, but Behind Enemy Lines, good movie. He was in Runaway Jury, which, of course, was John Grisham.
I remember that, yeah.
He was in, he was also nominated for I Never Sang for My Father. He was Lex Luthor.
He was
in Superman.
Okay, so that was before Hoosiers too.
Yep.
So I have to put Poseidon Adventure was still probably my first experience.
That wasn't my first. I guess second. I just discovered what I think was the first one.
Okay,
he was Avery Tolar in the other John Grisham movie he was in, which was The Firm.
Oh yeah.
So he played there with Tom Cruise. He was in Mississippi Burning with Willem Dafoe.
Right.
But I think the first I ever saw him in was probably Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay.
You know,
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, it's a crazy, crazy movie. Anyway, he has passed away, and so has his wife, and so has one of their 3 dogs.
Right.
And when I first saw this news, I thought, I bet that's carbon monoxide. And that was my very first thought. And then about 12 hours later, TMZ or somebody was reporting that is what the family was saying. It was a gas leak or carbon monoxide. But then later in the day, more gruesome things came out that perhaps they've been dead for a while.
Yeah.
And there were pills strewn on the floor and the bodies were in different places. And was there head trauma? They couldn't tell. And I hate to even say this because the bodies were a bit decomposed. So tragic. He was 95 years old.
Yeah.
And his wife was 30-something years
63,
his junior. Yeah,
I
32
think.
years his junior.
Yeah.
And the dog, I don't know what the deal was with the dog. I mean, the dog is dead. One of the 3 dogs has died, and so has Gene Hackman. Anyway, very sad.
Wasn't he the voice of something? He did a lot of voice acting.
I didn't know that.
After I thought he had. I'm going to have to look that up.
Look that up.
I hadn't been in a movie since 2004. I believe he'd retired and then was really very much
Retired.
out of the public eye after that. But I thought he'd still done some voiceovers for.
Oh, you mean like for
big
commercials?
Commercial stuff.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. But I sure did like him. He was like, I didn't even name all the movies.
Yeah.
He was in that movie that was about the Navy or something. Kevin Costner. I think Kevin Costner. I can't remember. Can I say just a word about the whole Ukraine-U.S., the signing and the rare earth minerals and all of that, the Zelensky deal that is going on? It sure looks like that is going to happen. And although it's actually not, people are liking to say that an agreement is being signed. It's not really what's happening at the White House with the visit from Zelensky. It's not a deal. It's called a framework.
Right.
So it's sort of an outline for the next time we get together, and maybe then it will be a deal.
Okay.
So it's sort of like they're not married, they're not even engaged. This is like a promise ring.
Okay. See, now I understand.
So it's like it's a promise ring that's going on. So it's not going to be decided, but there is much talk about what we talked about, for the last couple of weeks, or at least mentioned. Some common thread has been rare earth minerals, and whether this is the payback. See, part of the question that's going to come up is, when you guys helped us out to save our country, that was viewed as, and maybe even presented as, a grant. Mm-hmm. It was not viewed that it could be someday converted into a loan,
right,
that then must be repaid. So I don't know exactly how it's going to go, and I'm still nervous generally about the whole idea of. It reminds me. I'm not saying it's about Trump. Okay, so just hold your emails, but it sort of reminds me of, as the story goes, in the Italian neighborhoods in New York and Chicago. You'd have a mob boss or the capos or the soldiers. They would go from business to business. They go to the baker, and they would say to the baker, welcome. It looks like you got a good place here. The police are pretty good about protecting us, but the police don't really catch everything.
Right.
And so we sort of have a neighborhood group.
We can help.
We can help you with that. We can assist you in making sure that you stay safe, and that your business continues to thrive. It'd be terrible if somebody came and firebombed the place or something. Look, we support the police, but we're also here to help you, and it would be just 10% of your gross sales, and we'll come by every Thursday, and you can just put it in an envelope. And
it's extortion. Really,
I don't want to. It's like a shakedown. I mean, I don't want to be that country that says, hey, you know what, we can help you out. Just if you'll just give us a take of your rare earth minerals or anything else. I don't want that. I don't want that to be the way that we use or even promise to use our military. I think it's not a good idea. But we'll wait and see how this all plays out, as is the case so much of the time. It's a lot more like chess than checkers, and I don't want to be accused of playing checkers in a chess world. So we'll see how it all ends up.
But a big difference is, and correct me if I'm wrong here. The example that you gave, basically what they were saying is, we will protect you from us. We're the ones who are going to be doing the damage, but we won't do that damage if the protection was really, we won't cause you any trouble if you pay us this 10%. And that's not the same thing that you were talking about.
No, it's exactly right. That's not at all what I intended. Thank you for the clarification.
You know how seriously I take my my dog news.
I do.
Right? Yeah. This could be really big, I think. I'm not sure how I feel about it, though.
Okay.
I'm interested in getting your take on this. It's an anti-aging pill for dogs. When I first started reading it, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. The Food and Drug Administration has certified a daily pill as having a reasonable expectation of effectiveness at extending senior dogs' lifespans. So the regulators, Center for Veterinary Medicine, still has to certify that the drug is safe and that this San Francisco startup, Loyal, who developed this drug, can manufacture it at scale before vets can start prescribing the pill to dogs who are 10 years or older that weigh 14 pounds or more. So the really interesting thing about this to me is that, first of all, the notion, they say that if we can figure out how to get greater longevity for our pets, it can teach us things about greater longevity for their owners.
How is
which,
it? Why
of
is
course,
that?
That's us. This is all going to make more sense to you, I think, in just a second.
All right, go ahead.
So a key hurdle in developing this drug was to come up with a formula that would make pets and their owners happy.
Okay.
Because the whole idea behind this has to do with calorie restriction. So it turns out back in the 90s, I think, Purina came up with dog food that could prolong dogs' lives up to 2 years. But the problem with it was dogs didn't like it very much.
Okay.
It was a calorie restrictive food. Do you see kind of where I'm going here?
I do.
And you weren't supposed to feed your dogs treats and stuff like that along. You were keeping them from getting overweight into their older age.
Right.
And if you could do that, of course, it was going to keep them healthier.
That
It's
makes
not
sense.
that different
Nope.
from us, okay? But who wants to restrict their dog's calories? Nobody wants to do that. Not only is it not fun, everybody likes to give their dogs treats, but they think that it can harm the delicate bond between a pet and their owner.
What could harm having give them a pill once a day?
No. Well, first of all, if they get overweight in their older years, which they are more likely to do if they are inactive or if they don't get a lot of, if they get a lot of treats, which we like to give them because it makes them happy. And if they're happy, we're happy. So the person who is behind Loyal, she talks about, we co-evolved with dogs. It's not just that we like to give them treats. It's that, we were feeding them scraps of our food to get them to love us so they would protect us. That's the whole way they were domesticated.
Okay.
So what this comes down to, I think, really is figuring out a way to do that, showing our dogs we love them, but keeping them. I mean, can we keep them at a healthy weight without having to get a pill that tastes good? It's not. This article even talked about how we're a few years away from Ozempic type.
For dogs?
Yeah.
So they're saying that the pill itself is one that will taste good to the dog?
Yeah, it's beef flavored. There are people who are against this, who say that really what it comes down to is just keeping our dogs at a healthy weight, getting them plenty of exercise, maybe cutting down on some of those table scraps, and just let them live the lifespan that they were designed
Intended
to
to
live.
live.
But you got, keep them healthy, and they will, in many cases, live longer. Certainly, bad things can happen to
Right.
dogs, but for a healthy lifespan, cut down on the treats, keep them active, and then maybe they don't need a pill to keep the weight off.
Measles. We've seen this. Their first death from measles since 2015.
Wow.
I mean, anywhere. I mean, America. They said it had been eradicated in 2000.
Yeah.
But it's not. And we've seen, I think there are 80 cases out in West Texas and eastern part of New Mexico of measles, and they're all with kids.
Yeah.
One of the doctors said, this is a big deal. The doctor said, we have known we have measles in our community. Now we are seeing a very serious consequence. And I bring it up because it is an example, this measles story, an example of how both sides will use the same thing as a political football. I mean, you can imagine what is it that the right says about these cases? What is it the left says about these cases? I'll tell you what the left says. The left says these cases are because these children are unvaccinated. Now, that's true, but more on that in a second. But they will use that as more mandates for vaccines, more mandates, more mandates.
Right.
So it's the right's fault because they don't vaccinate their kids. So that's from the left's perspective.
Sure.
The right's perspective is it's the influx of illegals that come into the country and their kids aren't vaccinated. They're not following our rules. I don't know which of those is the truth or whether there's some combination, but there's also another element that I had not thought about. Do you know who the Mennonites are?
I do.
The Mennonites, they are a branch of the old Anabaptists, and the Amish, for example, that's another branch that I guess split off from the Anabaptists. Well, the Mennonites are, while there's nothing specific that directs them not to have their kids vaccinated, they tend not to vaccinate their kids.
Okay.
And so there's even a story, I think, out today or yesterday, talking about how Mennonites feel like they're getting the brunt of this, like it's their fault. These are communities where there are many Mennonites. Measles were declared eliminated from the United States in 2000 by the WHO, by the World Health Organization, due to successful vaccination efforts. But it continues to be reintroduced because of international travelers in recent years, anti-vax sentiment. And then, of course, as many people have said, even the illegal immigration that has come across. So all those things have combined. When you throw into that any religious opposition to vaccination, then it just becomes a problem. And I think, as the doctor said, we're seeing it sort of, it's an old saying, but chickens coming home to roost.
Sure.
Oh, it's time for Scattershoot.
Great.
Scattershoot Wilder Show, Scattershoot Wilder Show podcast, Scattershoot. And Lauren is going to space.
I'm what?
How about that?
I'm going where?
Lauren's going to space. You know, before we get to that, isn't it weird, as I was thinking about this topic and thinking about your trip to outer space, I was...
This is news to me.
Well, see, who says I don't have surprises?
How much do I get to pack?
Yeah, I'll tell you in a second. Hold on a second. But I was for some reason, I was thinking about the old Jackie Gleason show. And I thought, you remember those things?
The Honeymooners?
Yeah, Honeymooners. Yeah,
to the moon?
Yeah. Say, one of these days, Alice.
Uh-huh.
And what he was saying, he's gonna hit her.
Didn't he say...
he said, pow.
Right
to
in the
moon,
kisser.
Right in the kisser. Isn't that weird that we even used to, like...
Did he say that, or was it just to the moon? I remember to the moon.
He would put his hand like he's going to hit her.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
he said right in the kisser. But in any case, whether he did it in the kisser or what, it's like, wow, we used to really watch that. I mean, Saturday night, and it's from Miami. You know, and then it has the plane or whatever it was going over the water there right toward the city of Miami. For some reason, I thought, isn't that an odd thing that some things don't get replayed?
Did that? Now I'm going way far afield, but I'm remembering Art Carney from that show and how he would sit at the table in his little kitchen, and he had on a strap, like a white undershirt with straps we now call
a wife
beaters.
Isn't that funny?
Is that where that?
No, I don't know.
Was that? I wonder.
He didn't beat Trixie or whatever her name was.
Yeah.
It was Alice and it was Trixie and it was Ed Norton. Was that his name? Because we call Edward Norton. Anyway, I think it was Ed. It was Ed, I think.
I'd have to look
Ed
all
and Trixie,
that. I'd have
Ed
to
and
look
Trixie,
all that up.
and then whatever Jackie's character was, and Alice.
But
to the moon. Anyway, Lauren is going to not to the moon, not yet, but Lauren is going into space.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty exciting. And then I kept reading, and it turns out it's not.
So confused.
Well, it turns out it's not you.
Okay.
It's another.
It's a different Lauren? Is it Ralph Lauren? No.
It is Lauren Sanchez.
Oh, really?
Who you know is maybe you know her as Mrs. Jeff Bezos.
Yes, I do.
And so is Katy Perry.
Okay. Tell me what? Tell me about Blue Origin.
Well,
again.
that's the thing, where they go up into outer space just for a second or for 10 minutes and they come back. Remember?
Oh.
Like Jeff Bezos thing, sort of like Elon Musk, where you could have rich people go up there.
It's mostly just to say you did it, right?
Yeah, I
it's
think
not,
so, mainly,
okay.
yeah. So you have people that have done that. And I think you have Jeff Bezos is one of the guys that was doing that. It's sort of like space tourism sort of thing. And the oldest person who's ever done it was Captain Kirk.
Shatner, William Shatner.
William Shatner, when he was the oldest guy to ever go up in space. So Katy Perry, also Gayle King.
Oh, really?
Gayle King is going. She's 70 years old, Gayle King is.
She looks great.
So she's going, and then Lauren Sanchez is going. As the company announced this yesterday, 6 people flying on the NS-31 mission. It's going to launch sometime in the spring of this year. The crew also includes Bahamian-American aerospace engineer Aisha Bowe, civil rights activist Amanda Wen, and film producer Carrie Ann Flynn, whose credits include This Changes Everything. It's about the history of women in Hollywood. And Lily, a tribute to fair play advocate Lily Ledbetter.
Okay.
Anyway.
And they're all paying.
Well, when you're Mrs. Bezos, you don't pay.
You don't pay.
It turns out, according to Blue Origin, Sanchez, quote, brought the mission together. She is honored to lead a team of explorers on a mission. This is their quote, lead a team of explorers on a mission that will change their perspectives of Earth, empower them to share their own stories, and create lasting impact that will inspire generations to come.
I'm interested to see how this all works out, and I'm okay that I'm not the Lauren.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. The company described Sanchez as an Emmy Award-winning journalist, New York Times best-selling author, pilot, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and vice chairperson of the Bezos Earth Fund.
Okay.
Lauren is going into space. It's just not our Lauren.
It's not me.
No.
You and I have talked a lot about AI since we've started this little podcast endeavor. And I think part of the reason we've talked about it so much is because you really can't I can't open my phone without seeing another article about something that is impacted by AI.
Sure.
And so today's story about this, about where something else that AI is impacting is, there's tremendous rates of anxiety and depression among today's teenagers.
Oh, sure.
And whereas that used to be able to be handled or at least maybe mitigated a little bit was with the school guidance counselors. They were there for a lot of things like college applications and stuff like that. But if you were having trouble, you could go to your high school guidance counselor and at least have somebody to talk to, or they could help you talk to your parents, or they could help you find somebody to talk to. But now, because the rates of anxiety and depression in teenagers has grown to such dramatic levels, and because so many high schools have fewer than the necessary guidance counselors.
How could you have enough?
You couldn't have enough.
Yeah, right.
So there's a national standard, and I think it's supposed to be like one counselor for every 250 students.
No way.
But the national average is one counselor for every 376 students, and 17% of high schools don't even have a counselor. So it seems like some of these schools are turning to AI, and it is actually Sonar Mental Health, who is the developer of an AI-powered well-being companion named Sonny. It's been rolled out in a hybrid model to school districts which are struggling to meet student demand for mental health services. So Sonny's big selling point is that humans with backgrounds in psychology, social work, and crisis line support are always in the mix. Okay. So they're reviewing the chats and taking cues from AI to inform their replies to the students.
Okay.
So students who are participating in this have access to Sonny via text message every day from 8 a.m. until 2 a.m. So there are only a couple of hours a day when they can't, reach out to Sonny via text. Okay. And there are always humans behind it who are always monitoring the chats, and they know when to, if a kid ever says anything about harming themselves or harming someone else,
it's a trigger word.
It goes right to the parents and to the school to law enforcement, whatever is necessary to make sure that nothing terrible happens. But I thought one of the things that was so interesting to me, part of the reason that AI comes in so handy here is because AI is more in tune with the language that is acceptable to. They speak the same language,
so whatever slang
as
or whatever,
the teenagers, or they know the local vernacular too. So I mean that's going to differ from high school to high school, region to region, and also the emojis that resonate best with teens. So one discovery: smiley faces are cringy, and teens prefer more expressive emojis such as the melting face. So parents, if you're having text conversations with your teens, consider yourselves now educated that smiley faces are out and the melting face is in. So Sonny isn't a therapist. They're very clear about that. And Sonny frequently encourages kids to talk to the humans in their lives. This has been tested at Berryville High School in Berryville, Arkansas, where there are only 2 counselors for the 565 students. And that's not enough to meet the students' needs. 175 students have signed up for the service. So you don't just, it's not thrust upon you. Right. You have to agree that you want to take part in it. 53% of those say that they text Sonny several times a month. And the school has seen a 26% drop in student behavior infractions since students began using Sonny.
Technology, isn't necessarily bad. It can be used for good or used for ill. But I do think there's something to be said for humans. Say, well, ultimately, a human is going to contact them. But we've seen some of the things in AI.
Yeah.
The responses are wrong. I mean,
right.
They may be crowdsourced or whatever the right word is. They're grabbing from all the things that have ever been known. But that doesn't mean it's going to give a correct answer every time. And if the kids are on the brink, it seems like AI can't put an arm around your shoulder.
It sure can't. It sure can't. And at the whole reason this even came about is when they were trying to figure out if there aren't enough counselors to go around, and where are the kids? They're on their phones. So if we can put some kind of connection to help on their phone, but I agree with you. It's hard for me to find the good news in these AI stories. I understand what the problem is. I understand that you don't have enough counselors to go around, and I understand that the kids are in trouble, but it is really hard for me to think that this is, like you said, a replacement for an arm around somebody's shoulder.
Maybe, if it is, and we'll find out more, but maybe if it is something just sort of the first stage. And I know that, we're going to do this and AI is going to figure it out and then send it to a human. But ultimately, you still have to have a human that's going to make the contact with the person. And if it's a person off-site, it's still nameless, faceless, perhaps even voiceless person that is going to do the helping. And we also don't want to create a world where school districts, for example, will say, well, we could do the Sonny thing, or we could hire more humans.
We don't need any warm bodies
anymore. Here. I don't want when I go to a grocery store, I don't care how many items I have. I go to the person to check out my groceries. Yeah. I don't want to have a grocery store where everybody has to check. Look, here's the thing. I've always said this. And remember, my very first job ever was sacking groceries.
At the grocery store, yeah.
What I would say is, if I'm sacking my own groceries, I need a 10% discount. I'm serious. I'm doing I'm doing 2 people's jobs. If you're going to save money by automating something, and you don't give me a break, I am doing the job of checkout person and doing the job of sacking person. So I'm doing both those jobs. Now, if you gave me a discount, I might have some interest in doing my own. But the other thing is, I don't want people to lose their jobs. I don't want people
No, I don't either.
to be weeded out. Like, we don't need them anymore. Believe me, these companies, they are crunching the numbers to try and figure out how can we cut. And if we buy these machines, the machines last longer. We don't have to pay anything like unemployment, or if they get hurt, or insurance or anything else. We got a machine. It's not a big deal. As long as we have electricity, it's all going to be okay. I don't want to encourage that as a way to get rid of the people.
Don't you think they'd tell you, though, you are getting a discount if we don't have as many humans that we have to pay to check out the groceries? We can keep your costs down for the groceries themselves.
No, but what I would say is if I take the same bag, buggy or the little trolley of groceries to a person to check it out, I get a certain amount that it costs, $100 even.
Yeah.
If I take that same one over and do it myself, it's $100 even. So if I'm doing that work, I shouldn't pay the same price on those items as the person who is just standing there, playing Wordle while somebody else is checking the groceries and also sacking the groceries. So maybe the prices come down, but they come down for everybody. That's not giving a special discount to the people that are doing the job. That is the job of the people at the grocery store.
I understand what you're saying. And
on top of that, you're encouraging a system where they have fewer and fewer people doing those jobs, which I don't think is a good idea. But that's me.
Something that I worry about a lot, I think a lot about distracted parenting, and worry is probably not the right word. I think a lot about, parenting my kids are all grown up. They're well into adulthood. And when I see parents now with little kids, and they're spending a lot of time, the parents are spending a lot of time on their phone, maybe distracted by their phone. What I really think of how grateful I am that I didn't have that when my kids were little.
Wait, sorry, you didn't have a phone to be an enticement?
To be that could distract me, because I worry about how well I would have done with that.
Let me say something good about you. I don't think you would have. I don't think you would have been like that.
Oh, I like to think that.
We have phones now, and if I even now, or as the boys are growing up, I was never going fishing or going to do something. I didn't bring my phone out.
Yeah, but we didn't have the kind of phones that we have now. There's so much there that is available, and I think it is addictive.
Yeah, it's a temptation for some.
I do wonder, is it distracted parenting if you're listening to say you're going about your business with your kids during the day. Your little kids, they're at home. They're little enough to be at home.
Okay.
And you have one AirPod in and you're listening to a podcast.
Are you saying is that a bad thing?
Is that distracted, or is that maybe helping you deal with the real loneliness that can sometimes be associated with being the parent who's home with a very young child, or a couple of young kids day in and day out. What do you think?
Well, if you're saying is it wrong to is it wrong to, or does it make you a distracted person if you're talking to somebody or with an ear? You do it to me all the time, so I can't imagine.
I don't,
Lauren.
I'm not. Lauren, I don't do that.
All right.
I do it with Charlie sometimes. I do it with my dog.
Well, that's a dog. That's okay.
Yeah, but I do. This is going to sound. I feel bad about that sometimes.
Oh, my lands.
Like, it's just the two of us home. There are no kids.
It's just the one of you home,
anymore.
But the dog is there.
Well, it's just the one human. I'm not putting him on a human level, but sometimes I do. Or if we're on a walk and I'm listening to something, and I think I'm not even talking to him, and maybe that's leftover guilt from parenting or something like that. I don't know. But the person who wrote this. This piece, it's in New York Magazine, and she was really legitimately wondering about this. So she asked a pediatric researcher, Dimitri Chrisakis.
Okay.
He's the co-editor of the Handbook of Children and Screens.
Good Greek.
So he knows about distraction, and she, the writer of this piece, thought that he would maybe tell her that it's good for her daughter's language development to listen to podcasts along with her. Maybe she said, like all the faceless parents on the message boards who are doing the same thing
right.
had assured her. And he said, let me say this. Babies want parents' attention, and they're very keen on it.
I agree.
So while parents think that they're really adept at multitasking, we're less skilled at it than we think we are. That actually makes sense to me, because when I am listening to something in one AirPod while you're around, and I'm listening to something that is work related, and you try to talk to me at the same time, I can't do both at the same time. I can't listen to you and keep listening to what I have going on in one ear. I've got to stop that so I can pick up on your cues or listen to what it is that you're telling me. So that does make sense. Yeah. And a podcast playing even in the background or on an AirPod will distract the parent and make them less sensitive to their baby's cues. Now, he said, is that disastrous? I don't think we could really measure it, particularly if the parent is really trying hard to answer their baby's cues. But he said, I don't think that parents should think that they're fully attentive to their child if they're listening to a podcast.
No, I totally, except for this podcast, I totally agree with that. With that conclusion. No, I think that's exactly right. I think that. One thing that is true with adults, Lauren, for example, not that you've ever done it, but if you were to be doing that and I was trying to say something to you, you can then say, wait, I'm sorry, repeat that. We can't do that with babies. We can't say repeat that sound or that whatever. It's not up to me to provide rules for anybody, but it seems like what I would say is if you're going on a walk with, let's use your dog. If you're going on a walk with your dog, yeah, don't feel bad. Don't worry about it. Put the headphones in, listen to the podcast. Do you feel bad if you're on the phone with someone the whole time you're walking your dog? You're ignoring your dog.
No.
How could you possibly be talking to that person?
No, that's what I'm
saying.
Yeah, that's conversation with another person when it's just my own entertainment.
No, but it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying for the dog, the dog's still getting ignored either way, if that's important to you. If everybody's safe and all that, and you're taking a walk, a brisk walk with your baby in a stroller.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with listening to part of a podcast or talking to a friend as you do that. And, hey, this is what I do every day. If this is part of my routine, it's good to get the baby out. We go for a walk. Now, I don't think it's bad I wouldn't do it all the time. I don't think it's bad to do. Now, separate at the house, I think that probably, listen to your podcasts when the baby is asleep. And if the baby's sleeping in the day, like I got a brand new grandbaby, and of course up sometimes in the middle of the night, I remember when the boys were born and they were, you had a feeding schedule for twins. That's
a lot.
I mean, in those days it was a VCR, so you had taped programs that, that's okay. The baby, something just to fill the time in the middle of the night. We play music and all that kind of stuff, relaxing stuff, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that when you do something like that. But if you're at home and you got the baby, I think that time is going to go by so fast. It's going to be gone. It may not seem like it at the beginning. It may seem like it's never going to end. But believe me, it goes so quickly. And when it's gone, it is gone.
It is.
And it ain't never coming back. Tap the brakes. You can listen to the Wilder Show podcast when the baby goes to bed, maybe, or whatever. But we'll
be here.
Yeah, we'll be right here. That's the cool thing about podcasts. We started our time talking about Gene Hackman, and we left one movie out.
No Way Out.
That's the one. Is that the one with Kevin Costner?
Fantastic movie.
Oh,
it is. It is.
That is a good one. And man, is it fun until the very end of that movie. Isn't it?
Crazy.
To watch that whole thing. Loved it. Anyway, we started talking about Tony Scott, and I've been a huge fan. One of the movies that I love that Tony Scott did is the Brad Pitt, Robert Redford movie, Spy Game.
I've heard you talk about that.
I love that movie. I bought that movie. I have that movie downloaded on my laptop, and I think also downloaded on my phone in case I'm on the plane and I want to watch it.
Need something good to watch?
Yeah, it's great. And I love the direction. Everything about it is great. I know I've told you this line before. His secretary or administrative assistant or whatever, he's about to retire. Robert Redford's about to retire. And he happens upon some information. It's the CIA. He happens upon some information, and he actually hands his executive assistant a bag. It is a burn bag. He said, I've been waiting for an opportunity to use one of these. And he puts a bunch of stuff in it for her to take, and if she gets a signal from him to burn.
Okay.
and to get rid of, like it never even existed. She says to him, "Are we feeling a little paranoid on our last day?" And here is what he says back to her. "When did Noah build the ark, Gladys?" Before the rain.
Right.
Before the rain. There is an event going on right about now, and I meant to mention it earlier, but it is a rare 7-planet parade. Seeing all 7 planets in the evening time. And I'm talking about the ability to see Mercury, the ability to see Saturn, the ability to see Venus, all Jupiter, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, all. It's quite rare, but it's happening like right now.
Okay.
In the west, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn are visible to the west. Jupiter and Mars are overhead. And Uranus and Neptune you can only see with a telescope. So you can't see those without a telescope, but they are all going to be in the sky at the same time, which I think is just fascinating.
That's incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And so here's how those things tie together. How in the world is that having to do with the Tony Scott movie and Robert Redford saying, when did Noah build the ark, Gladys? Before the rain. Before the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I've wondered, and I don't know, but I've wondered if Adam and Eve ever saw the stars or the moon. You know, sometimes when I've been out at night, what is the first thing I look for? There have been a couple of times over the years that we've been walking to a car or something, and it's late at night and there's stars overhead. The first thing I always look for, and I say, oh, there it is. It's what?
Orion's belt.
Orion's belt. I love to find in the sky Orion's belt. I don't know why. I think maybe because it's one of the only things I can make sure, that is what that is. But then I got to thinking, did Adam and Eve see that? Did anybody before Noah see the stars or see the moon? And that's because that when did Noah build the ark before the rain? Before the rain, you can imagine, because it took years, obviously, to get that thing built. And you think, well, was he viewed? He had to be viewed as crazy because it wasn't raining, but he was still building the ark.
Yeah.
Not only wasn't it raining, I believe it had never
rained. Okay, talk about that a little bit.
The waters, God created the heavens and the earth. He separated. There's a firmament, or you call it a firmament, or you could call it a canopy, or the penumbra. And I think when I first started thinking about this was about 32 or 3 years, whenever my dad died. I described losing a parent as when the penumbra had been broken. That before that, when your parents are alive, it feels like, you have warmth but not heat. You have moisture but not rain or flood, because there is a canopy that goes over, like a vast terrarium. So everything's good. So you don't have this cycle, or evaporation and then flooding, and then there's no cycle like that. But it all changed when the penumbra. So the rain came for the first time on the flood. And if you think about it, lots of people believe that thing that was over the earth was water. There was water that was over the earth. Now, I'm getting kind of really crazy and deep on this. But if it was punctured, that would result in a flood.
That's when the rain would come that would cause the flood.
Then that canopy is broken. You don't have the protection anymore. You have the cycle of heat and evaporation and rain and evaporation and rain and evaporation. But for me, it all goes back to who were the first ones, other than God, who were the first ones to see the stars? I mean, every time I see Orion's belt, I think, that's amazing. That has been there forever.
Forever.
It's been right there forever. Not really forever, but really forever. But who were the first ones to see it? And I even went back and did a little sort of wilderized Bible study to try and figure out, is there any mention in the Bible of rain before the flood? Any? No. There's the mention of waters on the earth and all kind of stuff, separated by land or land separated by water. But no. Is there any mention before that, not of the creation of the stars, we know that, but the stars being observed by a person. And I couldn't find it. So if you have thoughts on that, if you have some reference to that, I mean, send me an email, just podcast@wildershow.com, and help me work through that, because I'm really curious. And I know not everybody really cares about this kind of thing, but I've always been sort of, even the first time I ever saw the movie, the Tony Scott movie, Spy Game, when Robert Redford looks up and says, "When did Noah build the ark, Gladys?" Before the rain. Before the rain. Not paranoid. I've wondered about that for years and years. I don't know the answer to it. I've looked and looked and looked. In fact, I recently got a book, Dennis Prager and PragerU. He's a great thinker, a great studier of the Bible and all kinds of things. And I went to he has a tome. I mean, it's got to be 700 pages long on the book of Genesis. Nothing.
Really?
Yeah, I was shocked. I thought, well, anybody could tell me this would be Dennis. And it actually, I think it went almost straight to the God's promise with the rainbow and never, this, that, and the other. Rest of it. And I thought, well, how do you, if you're studying Genesis, how do you leave out the flood? I mean, it's not the flood was left out, but that particular aspect of it was not addressed.
It's not
addressed
clear.
at all. Not at all. Oh, we have a bonus this week, too.
We do.
Yeah, the bonus is going to be for our predictions for the Academy Awards, which, by the way, they just had to increase or change the in memoriam.
Oh, my goodness,
Think about that last-minute in memoriam change.
Yeah.
Who have we lost
A couple of things, actually.
Yeah,
Young
sure.
actress died
That's true.
this week, too. Michelle Trachtenberg, who I knew mostly from a movie my kids loved when they were little, Harriet the Spy. Just loved it.
young.
Watched that over and over again. 38 or 39 years old.
Lands.
Yeah.
Okay, so wildershow.com is where you find us, wildershow.com. And you can also contact us, email at wildershow.com. Any of those emails about that we talked about, podcast@wildershow.com. Wilder Show podcast drops Tuesdays and Fridays, 6 a.m. Central Time. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Like, rate, follow, subscribe. Please do that and share. And we will see you next time.